Are we streaming, Bob? Yes, we are. We're already going.
Great. All right. You can just sit there and be comfortable. Chag Sameach, everyone. We are so glad you're here with us virtually. We have a very intimate festival service this evening, and we're going to begin with Hine Matov. Hine Matov Umanayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad Hine Matov Umanayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad Hine Matov Yalalai Yalalalalai Hine Matov Yalalai Yalalalalai Hine Matov Umanayim Yalalai Yalalalalai Hine Matov Umanayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad Hine Matov Umanayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad Hine Matov Umanayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Page 125. Now summer's prospect, the world ripening and growing softer, the promise of harvest fulfilled, the warming sun lies before us. Now the vision of Torah, the world at peace and growing gentler, the promise of goodness fulfilled, the loving heart lies open to the mind. And we add our special declaration for our festival. If you are looking for the words, they are on 146. Vayidaber Moshe et Moadai Adonai El Bnei Yisrael, and Moses declared the appointed festivals as what? Of Adonai to the people of Israel. I should be able to read my own handwriting. Beautiful.
We turn to page 121 for our candle lighting, and I invite up Dr. Amy Benedict to light our festival candles this.
We continue with Festival Kiddush on page 122. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'am, v'romemanu mikol lashon, v'kidshanu b'mitzvotav. V'titen lanu Adonai Eloheinu b'ahava, moadei l'simcha, chagim uzmanim l'sason, et yom chag hashvuot hazeh, man matan toratenu, mikra kodesh, zecher l'tziad mitzrayim, ki vanu v'charta ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, u'moadei kodshecha, v'simcha uv'sason v'hinchilanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh Yisrael v'hazmanim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehecheanu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Amen. L'chaim.
We continue with Baruch Hu on 130. And I invite you to rise like really slowly. Baruch Hu 130.
Lai, la, lai, 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 lai. Yai, la, lai, 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 lai. Lai, la, lai, 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 la, lai, 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 lai. Yai, la, lai, 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 lai. Lai, la, lai, 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 la, lai, 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 lai. Yai, la, lai, 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 lai. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidbaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chochma potech she'arim, bitbuna mishane itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umsader et hakochavim, b'mishmerotehem barakira kirtzono. Orei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, uma'avir yom umevi layla, umavdil ben yom uvein layla, Adonai tzvaot shemo. El chai v'kayam tamid imloch aleinu le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv arav. Page 135. We read together. Sinai was only the beginning. The Torah has never ceased to grow. In every age, it has been purified and enlarged. It has a permanent core and expanding periphery. It expands as the horizon of our vision grows. Nor are God's revelations confined to Israel. God has been the inspiration of the great and good among all families of the earth. God's love and guidance reach out to all the world. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto le'olam va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto le'olam va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. You may be seated. We continue on page 138. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha ve'hayu advarim ha'ela asher Anochi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha v'shinanta levanecha v'nivarta bam v'shivtecha v'veitecha u'v'lechtecha v'derech ושוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
On page 141 at the bottom, we read responsively. Doubting is but the forefront of faith in the infinite growth of an unbounded creation.
A doubting age is one of restlessness and discontent with what is current. A doubt is an idea that is still alive.
To doubt that the past has uncovered all things, to express faith that many things are still to be uncovered.
To doubt that we have grown to our full stature and knowledge is to express faith that we may develop into beings of such power and dignity that we cannot as yet imagine what shall be. Ya bye bye bim biddy bum, ya bye bye bim bum, ya bye bye bim biddy bum, ya bye bye bim bum, ay 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 ay, ya bye bye bim bum, ay 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 ay, ya bye bye bim bum, mi kamocha, baili Madonai, mi kamocha, nadar bakodesh. No Ratzahilo, no Sefela, no Ratzahilo, no Sefela. Ya bye bye bim biddy bum, ya bye bye bim bum, ya bye bye bim biddy bum, ya bye bye bim bum, ya ay 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 ay, ya bye bye bim bum, ya ay 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 ay, ya bye bye bim bum. Malachutecha ra'u banecha bokeyam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam zeli anu ve'ameru Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed ya bye bye bim biddy bum ya bye bye bim bum ya bye bye bim biddy bum ya bye bye bim bum ya ay 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 ya bye bye bim bum ay 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 ya bye bye bim bum ונאמר כיפדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
On page 145, together. May we lie down this night in peace and rise up to life renewed. May this night spread over us a canopy of calm, lifted by the blessing of rest. There will come a time when the morning will bring no word of war, famine, or anguish. There will come a dawn to rejoice in the peace of mind, heart, and being. Praised are you, the source of renewal within us, for the night's rest and for the promise of peace. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, vel kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. As we turn to page 204 and rise for the Amidah, I want to remind those of you who are on live stream that the book we are using is not our Shabbat prayer book, but our festival worship book. And so when you click on that link for the prayer book, you're going to go down to the fourth book, I think, second, third, fourth, whichever one says festivals, weekday festival, that one. And that will then be the page numbers that you are following along in. So I hope that that helps. And sorry we didn't think about announcing that earlier. Page 204, please rise for Amidah.
Adonai sifatai tiftachu fi agita hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, v'Koneh HaKol, v'Zocher Chasei Avot v'Imahot, u'mevii Geula Livnei B'neihem, Le'ma'an Shema v'Ahava, Melech Ozer u'Moshiach u'Magin, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magin Avraham, Bezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei HaKol Atah Rab L'Hoshia, Morid HaTahal, Mechakel Chayim Bechesed, Mechayei HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim V'Rofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayei Me'emunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Ba'al Gevurot, Umin HaMelech, Melech Memit U'Mechayeh, U'Matzmiach Yeshua, V'Ne'eman Atah L'Hachayot HaKol, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol.
Page 209. Your might, O God, renews the earth. With dewdrops of light and blessing, let the earth be illumined and blessed. For reading responsibly.
With dewdrops of joy and delight, let the earth rejoice and sing out.
With dewdrops of life and well-being, let the earth be revived and improved.
With dewdrops of redemption, let the earth be redeemed. Livracha v'lo liklala,
For blessing and not for curse.
l'chaim v'lo lemavet,
For life and not death.
l'sova v'lo l'ratzon.
For abundance, not want. Amen. Page 10.
Ata kadosh v'shincha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'kol yom yalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
You may be seated. Page 214. You have chosen us in love and favor by making us holy through your mitzvot, drawing us close to your service, that through us your great and holy name may become known in all the earth. In your love, Adonai our God, you have given us feasts of gladness and seasons of joy. This festival of Shavuot, season of our receiving Torah, unite in worship and recall the Exodus from Egypt. Page 260. Our God and God of our ancestors, be mindful of your people Israel. Recall our merit for good and grace, and in loving kindness and compassion for life and peace on this festival of Shavuot.
Zochrin Adonai Eloheinu bo l'tzova,
This day remember us for well-being. Amen.
u'foktenu bo livracha. Amen.
This day bless us with your nearness. Amen.
V'hoshienu bo l'chaim. Amen.
This day help us to a fuller life. Amen.
Amen.
208. We read together. Bestow upon us the blessing of your holy festivals, and may we so celebrate them as to be worthy of your blessing. Our God and God of our ancestors, make us holy with your mitzvot, and let your Torah be our way of life. May our rest on this day be pleasing in your sight. Satisfy us with your goodness, gladden us with your salvation, and purify our hearts to serve you in truth. Let your holy festivals remain our heritage, and let us celebrate them with joy, so that all Israel, hallowing your name, may have cause to rejoice. We praise you, Adonai, who sanctifies the house of Israel and the festivals. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh Yisrael v'hazmanim. Page 223. Our ancestors acclaimed the God whose handiwork they read in the mysterious heavens above, and in the varied scene of earth below, in the orderly march of days and nights, seasons and years, and in the checkered fate of humankind. Lift up your eyes, look up. Who made these stars? Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha lecha na'eh lehodot.
Shalom Rahava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rahava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov einecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael v'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
Having prayed for peace in our world, think of those who face the future not fully whole, those who are in need of healing of mind, body, and spirit. We think of them and whisper their names aloud now. Join together in Misha Berach, our prayer for healing, which can be found on page 247.
Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Lahim Avotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misha Berach Imavotenu Mekor HaBracha La'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. Take moments for your own self. Oh, say shalom b'Avramav. Oh, say shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'imru, v'imru amen. Yaseh Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom. Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the festival of Shavuot and where it comes from. It is one of the 3 pilgrimage festivals, and so definitely the initial reasons for this festival have to do with agriculture, and we counted the days from Passover to Shavuot, counted the Omer, and so there's a lot to have to do with making sure that the weather is just right and praying to God to have a wonderful summer festival, summer harvest. But once Jews were not really mostly in the land of Israel, like many other holidays in Jewish tradition, it evolved into a more spiritual concept as well. And so we have this idea, which is very powerful for us, of receiving the 10 Commandments, the Torah at Sinai on the festival of Shavuot. And that really becomes the centerpiece for us, not just as Reform Jews, but Jews around the world when we celebrate the festival. And of course, since none of us were physically at Mount Sinai at that moment, we wonder what revelation really was. We never stop wondering. It's probably the source as Reform Jews of our ambivalence about following all the commandments in the Torah, though not the ethical ones, of course, but all the ritual ones, and so many other parts of our tradition as we try to find modern meaning in our lives. We really search for the idea, really understanding what that idea of revelation is all about, I think in a desire to be spiritually inspired and connected to God and to our tradition. So we're going to look at just a few, really just 2 verses of our Parsha, which we will read from tomorrow morning, and then 4 commentary, because there are 4 of us here to think about what Revelation is all about. So it is on, and if you're with us on live stream, there is a tab right below your screen where you can access our text study and study along right with us. Okay. So in chapter 19 of Exodus, we read that on the 3rd day, as morning broke, there was thunder and lightning and a dense cloud upon the mountain and a very loud blast of the horn, and all the people in camp trembled. Moses led the people out of camp toward God, and they took their places at the foot of the mountain. So we have this very majestic, cinematic description of what occurs. It goes on as well to mass chaos and confusion. When we study this text, they usually ask, "Do you know what just happened there?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, "Yeah, no one does." Like it's maybe purposefully vague and confusing. But we have a few different ways of thinking about what this is just the beginning of the revelation itself, but what that revelation was all about. So Dr. Amy Benedict, will you read for us the Rabbi Larry Kushner?
Within the Western religions of revelation, everything depends on the source of the voice. If it comes from beyond people, then there is a God. If it comes from within them, then there is. Orthodox claim spoke once and for all at Sinai, but that we were all there to hear it. The point is that God is more than us, other than us, beyond us. If humanity ceased to be, the voice will still sound. And since God's voice issues from the outside, it instructs and commands. If, on the other hand, liberals, the voice comes from within, then religion is inescapable. It makes little difference whether the voice is heard as inspiration, conscience, insight, tuition. What matters is that if all people were to vanish from the earth, the voice would. Therefore, the Holy One of, as it were, 2 modes. There is the one whose voice comes from without, the public man. On the other hand, there is a mode of hearing, one of being that is present. This is one place, a personal, quiet, eternal sound. Professor Emil Fackenheim once wisely suggested that if the agnostic present Mount Sinai would have heard the thunder and the lightning, wondered what all the commotion was about. To which we might add that had we been there, would have doubtless been paralyzed by our inability to decide voice outside or inside our when of course now the choice itself for the voice if the voice from both within and without and no matter is very
think so. Obviously, this is actually like I know I'm going to unpack it a little. So this is actually a condensed statement of a longer piece. But what Rabbi Kushner is doing is laying out the two main ways that we think traditionally about God's presence and God's voice. One is transcendent from up above. This sanctuary definitely is a demonstration of that sense of God's power. And then there's also the immanent sense of God within us. And what Kushner's saying is some people say, no, God is only on the outside. Others say, no, I only feel God on the inside. But what Kushner is saying is yes and yes. Because if God is all powerful and God is everywhere, then that revelation happened inside and outside, all over, everywhere, in every molecule of being in the universe, all at that same time. And that it's okay to have different experiences at different times about how you might experience God's presence because we are different. And each person has the ability at any moment to experience God's presence in different ways. And I think Kushner would say, and we could ask him, that that's on purpose, right? If it wasn't flexible enough, then it wouldn't be there at all times. So I love Beckenheim. But pretty okay. So now we're going to share two traditional midrashim that also help us understand not just what Revelation was about, but what covenant, the fact that we were there and we accepted Torah is about. And Israel, Rabbi.
Rabbi Rich. There are two midrashim that describe the giving of Torah. One tells of the people Israel standing at the foot of Sinai, while the Holy One informs them that if they do not take the Torah, he will turn the mountain over and it will be their burial. A second tale tells of God and the effect of peddling Torah from one people to another, till Israel finally gets God's pitch and accepts freely and enthusiastically. The first midrash describes the fact that my parents were Jews and didn't ask if I wanted to be born that way, any more than their parents did or their parents all the way back to Sinai. How I respond to my Jewishness is described by the second midrash, for here, with Revelation, I am not chosen, rather I choose. I either choose willingly to accept the gift of Torah or to run the risk and escape.
Thank you. Right, so these are two very traditional midrashim, and I think more and more in the modern day, it is that second idea that is far more compelling. Whether it's because we were raised Jewish and have been Jewish in our families for generations, or are seeking the path towards Judaism, knowing that the covenant is a mutual covenant, even though there is a senior partner in that covenant, it's not us, but that we have to be willing to be in relationship with God in order for that covenant to be made real. Go back to the Kushner, it's not that God wouldn't be there, right? And if we want to throw in another great theologian, Abraham Joshua Heschel, who his most famous book is God in Search of Man, right? So yes, we think that we're always searching to find God, but it's really God who is waiting for us to discover God's presence in the world. All right, so we turn over to the next side. Rabbi Jurgen, will you read Rabbi Nina Beth Martin?
I would love.
Thank you so much.
Some people wonder why the name Zman Matan Toratenu refers only to the giving of the Torah and not to the receiving the Torah. The traditional answer is that the Torah was given only once, years ago on Mount Sinai, whereas it is received every day. Every day, each Jew receives the Torah in his or her own way and must approach it within the terms of his or her unique capacity. With every Jew, the Torah must be accepted anew.
Right, I love this as a great modern interpretation of this idea that all of us were at Sinai, right? And so Torah was given once, but it's out there for us to receive. And also that, again, that idea of mutuality and that it's our job to step forward and receive that revelation and open ourselves up to it, I think is really compelling. And that it's not a one-time deal. Just because you have your bar mitzvah or your bat mitzvah, just because you're confirmed, just because you go through a class, just because you serve on the board, it doesn't mean you're done with your Jewish life, right? And we see people who take that idea to heart, and even though they continue to study their whole lives, they continue to find ways to serve their community, whether it's in official capacities or not. They understand this idea that once you have been called to covenant, it is a never-ending life journey.
It's also what I say all the time, that each one of us by choice, no
Yeah.
matter what, right? Because every day we choose what kind of Jew we want.
Absolutely. And so Rabbi Terry Bookman, I think, epitomizes this, our searching for understanding. It is so difficult to understand revelation. Perhaps it simply must be experienced rather than understood. Think of moments in which you truly felt awestruck at the wonder that is life. Perhaps in those moments you felt a sense of your greatness and your smallness, connected to all that ever was and ever will be. Perhaps in those moments you felt that you just knew that everything seemed to make sense, that everything had purpose and meaning. That was revelation. At Sinai, our entire people felt that way for a moment. Shared by everyone, it transformed us, shaped us. The moment made us a people. The promise of Sinai is that revelation is ongoing and continuous, available to each and every one of us at any moment. So I think, to me, what my takeaway from Bookman is, if you want to get a taste of what revelation is somewhat like, you think of those moments, and then you think, what would it have been like for hundreds of thousands of people to be standing in one place at one time, and not only having that experience all at the same time, but having that experience because of a specific moment, right? That power begins for us to get a glimpse, a sense of what that moment of revelation must have been like, and that we are able to tap into that idea when we are in the right mode. Can't happen all the time. That would be exhausting, right? And as we know, what happens after the revelation at Sinai, the Israelites say to Moses, that was nice. We don't ever want to hear God's voice again. Terrifying. You talk to God, and then you talk to us, right? So it was too much. It was too much for them. We know that we have the capacity, and maybe because it's been watered down over thousands of years, that now we wish we had that closeness to that revelation. But we know we still have the ability to get into that mode, into that frequency when we're in the right. Happy? Zman matan baratenu.
So before we go to our Alenu, our concluding section of our worship, I want to offer a prayer for peace for Israel and for everywhere in the Middle East right now. And I want to share with you a meditation called When Peace Comes by Alden Sullivan. O you children of Abraham, you sons and daughters of Sarah and Hagar, what will you become? How long before shalom and salam echo in these hills, these valleys, and on these shores as shouts of awe and amazement? How long before we remember to hold each other dear? One God, maker of all, banish war from our midst. Speedily bring forth justice, understanding, and love. Bind these wounds and heal our hearts. On that day, the children of Ishmael, the children of Isaac, will dance as one. Joy will rise to heaven, and gladness will fill the earth. And together we say, Amen. We continue with Alenu on page 323. Please rise.
Aleinu l'shabech l'adon hakol, l'teit gdula liotzer breshit, shehu samchel kin liacher et shemo, v'gor aleinu liamlich malchuto, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech, malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'namar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo
may be seated. We turn to our memorial meditation on page 328. Poem by Merritt Malloy. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone. Give them what you need. Give me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes, not your mind. You can love me best by letting hands touch hands, by letting go of children that need free. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. We turn now to page 334 and rise together for Kaddish Yatom, thinking of all of those who are in our hearts this Yitzgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabba, ve'alma divrach yirutei ve'amlich malchutei, chayachon u'yomechon u'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, v'agala u'vizman karib, imru, amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevarach le'olam u'mei almaya, yitzbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudasha b'richu, La'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, imru, amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, to which we say, amen.
Amen. Since no one knows La'asok Divrei Torah,
Yeah. Oh, was that?
well, it's not, it says Lebracha.
Oh.
We're gonna do that. Okay. We're going to do Tree of Life because we are celebrating Matan Torah, receiving Torah. We all need to clap. It is a tree of life to them that'll fast to it, and all of its supporters are happy. It is a tree of life to them that'll fast to it, and all of its supporters are happy. Shalom, 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 shalom. Eitz Chaim hi lemachazikim v'tomecha me'ushar. Eitz Chaim hi lemachazikim v'tomecha me'ushar. Shalom, 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 shalom. Chag Sameach.